A couple of years ago, I was lucky enough to visit Peru. As many of you know, it is quite simply one of the greatest countries in the world for archaeological investigations. Scattered along an immensely long coastline on the desert fringe beneath the high Andes are some of the most extraordinary finds that have ever been made in the world. Of course, most famous for places like Machu Picchu and Cusco and the incredible Inca sites of the 15th century and early 16th century. Peruvian prehistory, in fact, goes back thousands of years earlier. And me being me, I spent much of my time looking at these really ancient cultures. So there's the Moche, a kind of almost Maya-like society of city-states which warred against each other, taking sacrificial captives back to their huacas or temples to be sacrificed. Before that, there's the Nazca, the incredible geoglyph builders in the deserts of southern Peru. In between, there's the Wari and Tiwanaku, great empire builders who dominated in the time after the Moche until the Inca arrival. But long before all that, there are so many other incredible societies too. Up in the highlands, you have the incredible spiritual site of Chavin, where psychedelic animalistic carvings are seen all through this amazing site up in the mountains. And the Chavin culture seems to have spread out all through that region like the Incas would later do. But they may well have been purely based on a religion rather than a powerful conquest empire. But long before all that, you have the Norte Chico at places like Corral and Bandoria and Aspero. Absolutely monumental sites with vast pyramids and many thousands of inhabitants. Amazingly, these sites are contemporary with the Egyptian pyramids of the 3rd millennium BC. When they were found in the 1990s and before, it quite simply changed the paradigm of Peruvian archaeology entirely. Nobody had been expecting these places to exist. But there they were. However, there is one site in Peru that I visited that has really stuck with me. Not just due to its enigmatic nature, but because of its sheer age. This place is ridiculous. So, not far outside of the northern capital of Trujillo, an amazing Spanish colonial town, absolutely beautiful, you have the major sites of the Moche civilization, Huaca de la Luna and Huaca de la Sol. Another site, probably the second greatest of all that are known, is known as El Brujo, the Wizard. All the classic trappings of the Moche world have been found here. Carvings of sacrificial victims lining the temples, and much more. But amazingly, El Brujo doesn't just have Moche pyramids, because there is one site which dates back as much as 10,000 years before the Moche age. This is Huaca Prieta. When Huaca Prieta was first investigated by American archaeologist Junius Bird in the 1940s, the paradigm of Peruvian archaeology simply wasn't ready for this find. It was so ridiculously old that Bird couldn't even comprehend it. Now, it isn't quite a pyramid as such, as we may recognise one. This is a mound that has been built up over successive generations over thousands upon thousands of years. Although Edwin Barnhart of the Great Courses Plus, and just eminent scholar in general, does refer to it specifically as a pyramid, He calls it the earliest pyramid in the world. And there is a good argument for this. People certainly were making offerings of a kind on this site. They were being buried on it, and they were leaving their rubbish on it, but they were also using it as a central place to congregate. And this is even before agriculture came to this part of the world. As far as I'm concerned, we should be thinking of this place as a Göbekli Tepe type site, at the very beginning of everything in Peru. The people here were not great empire builders. They were not urban living people at all. They were forager hunters. And perhaps above all else, they were fishermen. Finds here include shellfish, fruit, gourds, squash, peppers, beans, tubers, and perhaps most importantly of all, not a food crop, but one used for materials, because here is found some of the earliest evidence of cotton cultivation in the Americas. It seems that at the very beginning, people along the Peruvian coast, also at places like Corral and Espero, were fishermen. This was a huge part of their lives, to the point that they probably couldn't have built their societies without it. And this in itself is an argument that's been going on for absolutely ages now, decades. The idea that Peru may be unique in the world for having created its civilization based not just on farming, but even before that, on the bounty of the sea. And this is still up for debate. Every few years the pendulum keeps swinging on the matter, but we really can't say for sure. There are places like Espero, which is at the sort of end of the Supe Valley, where Corral is much further inland from it. And here it seems like people, all they did was fish. They had these huge nets, these huge cotton nets, which they would catch an immense amount of fish from the sea, these being some of the most plentiful waters in the entire world, due to the intricacies of the Humboldt Current. And then they would dry out all these fish, and they would kind of like pack them up and then send them inland. And it's thought that they were trading for items further inland, like cotton to make the nets with. And also probably having a kind of religious thing going on with Corral. And it may be that at places like Huaca Prieta, we see the very earliest origins of this way of life. Because there are nets here, there's cotton here, there's textiles. And only in a few places in the entire world would these kind of things survive. But because of the dryness of the desert heat, they do survive here. And we can still see them today. And if you do want to see them, I mean, you can find a lot of the artefacts that Bird found at the Natural History Museum in New York. I was lucky enough to go there last year, and absolutely mind-blowing rooms on the ancient Americas. Truly incredible stuff. If you haven't been there yet and you live in America, well, if you live in New York State, go check it out. So Huaca Prieta had its own thing going on for a long time, and then eventually it kind of gets involved in this Norte Chico world, which was growing on the northern coast of Peru. Eventually it gets caught up in the Cupanesque period as well, and the Chavin culture. Until finally the Moche come along and they build their own sites adjacent to it. But how do we know that people weren't aware of the immense antiquity of the place? There may have been some kind of understanding of what that place had been in their version of antiquity. Unfortunately, almost all of these stories are gone. So all we have to go on is archaeology. Such was the devastation of the genocide when Europeans arrived. But work at Huaca Prieta continues to this day. Only in the last 10 years, incredible discoveries have been made. I'll link to some of these studies down below in the description if you want to have a look at them. It's absolutely fascinating stuff, and the story of this site is still very much being told. Just a few takeaways from these studies. In 2012, it was discovered that corn cobs were being cultivated at this site as early as 4700 BC. This is wildly early, and it suggests that people along the coasts of northern Peru were already eating corn at this time. Though, of course, corn took a huge amount of time to domesticate, so this is a very early type of it. And of course, radiocarbon dates have come back now as early as 12,000 BC, potentially 14,000 BC, making it one of the earliest permanent sites in the Americas. Absolutely incredible. Well, if you like this video, do a like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below, let me know what you think. This is a new style of video for me, but I may make some more in the future. Let me know. Cheers, guys. See you later.